And we're going to move on to our next speaker, who is from the Torrance Refinery Action Alliance. I do want to say Sergio is online, so thank you for joining us, but we're going to move on with the TRAA, and then we'll get into the recall with Sergio. So Nia Liggins, she is an intern. Liggins, thank you.
It's okay.
Nia Liggins. At least I'm not doing as bad as Steve Goldsmith.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, she's an intern with the Torrance Refinery Action Alliance. She's currently studying natural science at the Los Angeles Trade Technical College. She hopes to continue her education in natural science by transferring into an earth or environmental science program in the fall of 2022 in order to prepare her for a career as an environmental scientist. She was a senior locally here at Bishop Montgomery High School in Torrance, California, when the Torrance Refinery explosion occurred, and her journey has brought her back to being involved in the community. Nia will be sharing the Torrance Refinery Action Alliance's progress in the battle against HF in the refineries. So welcome, Nia.
Thank you for having me, everyone. Once again, my name is Nia Liggins. I am the intern with TRAA, and I'll give you a few seconds to describe my journey. As Anne said, I was a senior at Bishop Montgomery High School in Torrance when the refinery explosion occurred, and ash fell on all of us. And thankfully, I was in class, so when I came outside, ash was everywhere. After graduating in 2015, I went to Seattle to study in general engineering with a concentration in appropriate and sustainable engineering. After about 2 years, I left due to the lack of equitable resources. I took a few years off and spent them working at West Angeles Church of God in Christ and their education enrichment program, and returned back to school, attending Trade Tech in 2019. And here I am, working with TRAA and preparing to transfer in the fall of 22. Despite me planning to transfer, I do plan on being around for a while, because not only is this something I'm passionate about, just environmental justice in the first place, but this is something that's like more personal for me, having been a student at Bishop when the refinery explosion occurred. To refresh everyone's memory too, TRAA is a grassroots organization of residents and business owners who live or work in neighborhoods surrounding the Torrance and Wilmington HF refineries. As you probably previously learned, or, living in the area, you can know that residents have been fighting since 2015 to remove HF, which is hydrofluoric acid, a deadly chemical from a local that's at local refineries in the country and throughout the country, including Wilmington and Torrance. I'm going to read to you all some key points from the summary that we recently submitted to Administrator Regan, the head of the Environmental Protection Agency. And we had this hand-delivered by Representative Berrigan, who really supports us and really wants to see a conversion from HF to one of the many safer alternatives. And on top of that, we have a similar summary that we presented this last week to an ally of Attorney General Bonta for delivery to him. So we are really hoping that things work out with him and he'll be as enthusiastic as Berrigan. In summary, hydrofluoric acid, or HF, is an exceptionally hazardous chemical used in massive quantities in facilities vulnerable to things such as accidents, natural disasters, intentional terrorists, or criminal acts. Modified HF, or MHF, and HF are basically the same thing. They have the same level of danger. So if you hear the refinery saying, "Oh, but we use modified HF," no, we're still equally in danger. And a release of HF cannot be sufficiently mitigated to avoid the possibility of mass casualties. There's vastly safer technological alternatives available from multinational large industry vendors. The steps are needed to require conversion from HF to an inherently safer technology at the 2 refineries in California, which once again, Torrance Refinery and in Wilmington, and the other 40 nationwide. So there's a lot of people who don't know that they know refineries have dangerous chemicals, but a chemical that's optional and doesn't have to be at refineries should not be at refineries. An example of someone who, lives near a refinery HF is actually our President Joe Biden. So not only is this, something that concerns us, but this becomes a concern on a national and somewhat international level if something were to happen to the refinery near his home and he and his wife happen to be around or anything like that. So what has TRAA been doing lately? Well, we've been working at 3 different levels. On the local level, we made endorsements in the Redondo Beach and Hermosa Beach elections earlier this year and are now gearing up for active participation in the Torrance City Council and mayoral races. We've been advocating for those candidates to make HF a major campaign issue, and it clearly defines the difference between Democrats and Republicans running for office in Torrance. We also think that the city of Los Angeles' mayoral race is a potential avenue for advancing HF as a public issue. We have a good relationship with one of the possible candidates, and additionally, the responsibility for the AQMD, which stands for Air Quality Management District's failure to respond, lays on the doorstep of one of the candidates for mayor. On the state level, we continue to interact with AQMD board members and staff. We are pushing for a reversal of the board's previous decision, which contradicted their own staff science. 15 people spoke at the second anniversary of the AQMD's failure, along with several partner organizations such as Coalition for Clean Air, Communities for a Better Environment, and Sierra Club. So we can see that this is starting to, HF is really starting to, I guess, be something that people are aware of, and we really want to increase that. We also continue to pressure the governor and the attorney general to engage in this issue. Now that the recall is over, thankfully, which TRAA, by the way, officially endorsed no on the recall, we're hoping that he can, like you all said, get it together and follow his own words and be bold. On the national level, we actively participated in the EPA listening sessions on a new rule to govern extremely hazardous chemicals. Nearly 20 people spoke about HF at this national forum. So once again, not only around here, but across the country, people are really starting to be concerned about HF, which is good. After that, we submitted a rule amendment, which, if adopted, would require refineries to convert from HF to a vastly safer chemical. Along with that proposal, we submitted a letter to the EPA leadership and followed that up with a hard copy package of the letter and supporting documents. Last week, we attempted to get Senator Padilla to attend a hearing of the Environmental and Public Works Committee and hoped he would question the nominees about HF. Unfortunately, he did not respond. And from what I remember, I don't think he even showed up to that. Now we decided that we were going to mobilize people to move the EPA and ultimately the White House to require the phase out of this exceptionally dangerous chemical. For example, some of the things that I'm doing is I'm collecting the information of key staff people, various representatives and senators that have HF in their districts, and we are going to contact whoever their legislative advisor is in charge of environmental issues to hopefully jumpstart them into jumpstarting their bosses, the representatives and senators, into looking at this issue. On top of that, we're preparing to outreach to locally elected officials, community organizations, and press in each of those 40 communities surrounding an HF refinery in order to catalyze them into showing the EPA that immediate action is necessary. Now, where we need you all. Here's how you can make a difference. At the Torrance Refinery Action Alliance, we encourage people to engage in activities that meet their interests and their skills. So for example, for me, I just started about 2 weeks ago now. And although I have a public works background and a research background, I'm really excited and hoping that one day I can dive into my creative side and perhaps even create a documentary centering around HF, since we see that people really listen to documentaries these days, especially since people like to staying home because of COVID. Well, they were, and spending more time just watching things. I think that's a great way to engage with people and really put this on their minds on a local and on national and international level. So We are seeking to apply local and national pressure. So if you have connections to any politicians, that would be great. If you have worked on any other kinds of campaigns like this or are good with talking to elected officials, we really need your help. In regards to next June's Torrance election, we are planning a phone banking push poll in the fall to ask voters about HF in order to educate, raise awareness, and have evidence that this should be a local campaign issue for Dems in the June 2022 Torrance elections. In regards to that, maybe you called voters in the recall election. Maybe you love letter writing or have experienced letter writing, or you enjoy walking. We could use some precinct walkers. We can use your expertise. So any of those areas or anything you come up with that you feel you could do, we need you. On top of that, we're planning an anniversary event on February 15th, 2022, anniversary of the refinery explosion, and we need creative ideas and implementers. If you have a background in corporate finance, maybe a campaign to reach investors would be up your alley, and we can put you up to speed on HF and train you. As you can see, once again, I just started about 2 weeks ago, and I can help you since like how the president, Steve Goldsmith, helped me. If none of these ideas resonate with you, we have other ways in which you can help, such as tabling, leafletting, and doing things at outreach events. Your skills, no matter what, are needed. There is something for you to do if you can help. And of course, we always welcome donations. And you can go to TRAA.website to learn and to donate. I'll make sure to put that in the chat at the end, along with our link where you can sign up to get our monthly links to our monthly meetings and things of that nature and newsletters. So I'll come back to that. It is important for me to emphasize that this is a progressive issue and community safety is a unifier, especially when it comes to protecting the environment and the economy of the South Bay. On top of all of that, this is a really great opportunity around the country to reach across the aisle, break down divisions. We have a lot more in common and things have been pretty divisive the past couple of years. And perhaps this could open people's minds to a different view of environmental protection in the Democratic Party. In short, this is basically a political education opportunity for those who otherwise might not be open to it. And to sum things up, in 2015, we were nearly a disaster. We were a near miss. There have been a few near misses in Philadelphia and Wisconsin. Once again, there's only about 40 refineries in this country that use HF. So for any near miss is really scary. There's a ticking time bomb in like 40 communities, and we could be the next Beirut where chemicals were knowingly left in a warehouse dock for 6 years. Or we could be another Bhopal where there was a massive release of a chemical, or another Fukushima where a disaster happened that wasn't anticipated. The South Bay could be up next. And living on the Palos Verdes Peninsula, you have double the threat. You have the Wilmington Refinery and the Torrance Refinery. And we have to answer that call before it's too late. We can prevent this. In a lot of these cases, people knew something needed to be done, and yet they did nothing. In regards to the Torrance Refinery, people know something needs to be done, and yet nothing has been done. But except for us, we're doing something, and we can prevent people from dying. So once again, thanks for listening, everyone. Connie Sullivan is here, I believe. Connie?
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Nia. We have Connie and we have Jane that have added some comments here in chat, so they might want to get on.
Yes, you can feel free to ask any of us questions. Connie and Jane, feel free to hop in. I can always use your support. This is my first time speaking to you all.
Connie Sullivan and Jane Alfonso both are members of PV Dems and of the TRAA, and they're here to support this conversation.
I'm just here to help Nia field any questions that she feels she's not able to answer.
Yeah, I will want to say when we had the earthquake here on Friday, I turned on Channel 9 News, and their first graphic was of the Carson refinery. So, I mean, it was at Carson, but of anything that was in Carson, they were focused on the Carson refinery and the flares that were going on. So whether it's a dangerous chemical or just a refinery, they are fearful that something bad can happen. So, and here we have a bad, HF chemical here at Wilmington and at Torrance.
Correct.
So any questions for Connie and Jane and Nia?
I should mention that, the local refineries did flare automatically after this earthquake, but just imagine an earthquake where all the local refineries are flaring and there is a release of HF. Can you imagine?
No.
And I wanted to thank Nia for such a great presentation after 2 weeks of work. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm really excited just about all the actions that we're taking now, that the campaign seems to be reinvigorated, and there's lots of strategies for how we can move forward. And one other thing, if anybody's on the call and has access to either a nonprofit or a for-profit corporation that could help us to hire Nia as an employee, we don't have the capacity to. We're all a volunteer organization, but you can let us know if that's something that we can organize the funding, but we can't do the logistical employment part.
Okay.
So, Anne, you also have Al Sattler on as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Al, you're welcome to say something as well. Well, I will want to say I was at the last TRAA meeting and Tony Hale was the speaker. And one of the conversations I thought which was really good, is how you frame what you're doing. And by framing the issue as ban MHF or ban HF, the refinery was able to get the workers to counteract and think, oh, well, if you're going to ban it, then you're going to close the refinery and we're going to lose our jobs. And so by using the word ban, he said, puts a negative connotation for the workers. So he was suggesting, instead of saying ban, you say transition or other. He was suggesting other words, and so Harold Williams had said earlier that Tony Hale had helped him on his campaign. Well, it also turns out Tony Hale helped on Hermosa getting rid of their or trying to get rid of their refinery, the power station as well, and was successful. So. So anyway, he's going to be helping TRAA help reframe what their campaign is.
Except that's been our framing for the last 5 years.
I understand.
We stopped saying ban almost immediately, and we.
Oh, you did.
Yes, and we've been talking about transitioning to a safer alternative. It's in all of our written materials. So
I guess I still see the ban.
Well, you might be hearing ban. We're not saying ban. We haven't said that.
Well, the signs that I see out.
Oh, the signs, yes. Well, the signs that's true. The signs did say that because the signs had to be short. It had to be a short statement.
So I also wanted to say, also in today's LA Times front page, I don't know if people can see it, but anyway, they're showing the Phillips 66 refinery in Wilmington, and they're talking not about HF, obviously, but they are talking about carbon offset credits being misused by the Air Quality Board. And so that I would suggest people read that article. It's very good in terms of how, where we're trying to transition from fossil fuels to green energy. So there is a transition, not just of getting rid of HF, but of transitioning away from all fossil fuels. But anyway, so this article talks about how the misuse of the carbon credit. Okay, go ahead.
I see a question that says from Miss B. It says, I observed at the RPV City Council that this issue is brought up and summarily dismissed. How can citizens get a city to take it seriously? Continuous engagement, reaching out to your local your local representatives, gearing up and getting those around you excited, or I guess passionate about converting from HF. Because when politicians and council members see that, oh, enough people view this as something that's important, they will begin to take it seriously. Emphasis on enough people, because that can vary per person.
Yeah. So we'll keep having news about this on our website as well. And, you know, Connie's on our board and brings this up with us. So we'll keep fighting for TRAA.
Yes. We
Okay.
can do it.
So I should mention one thing, speaking of cities, the Torrance election is very important. And you'll recall that Torrance actually lied about the safety of MHF. So we think that there's grounds for a lawsuit, but that city in particular is very important to get involved in that election.
So you haven't picked your candidates that you're supporting yet, or you have?
No, we're in the midst of
Okay. So you'll let
interviewing,
us
sending
know.
out questionnaires. Yeah.
We'll be sending out, the filing period hasn't ended yet. When the filing period ends, we'll send out questionnaires, which is what we did with Redondo and Hermosa. We didn't actually endorse. That's not quite what happened. We sent out a scorecard showing which of the candidates were better on the issue and which were not so good on the issue. And
Okay.
that's
So
what
we'll
do that again, probably.
great. And we could publicize that on our website. Great.
Oh, great.
Okay.